The wind pressed against the Milford proving ground, and a little black coupe did what coupes do. It purred, it leaned, it made engineers nod. On paper, the ignition switch was just another part, a rotary detent with a spring and plunger that clicked through off, ACC-RUN, START. A spreadsheet somewhere priced every subcomponent to the fourth decimal place. Fractions of a cent were the game. The spring force that held the key in run came out light. Somebody flagged it. Somebody else waved the flag down, and cars left the plant with an invitation inside them the size of a fingertip. On real roads, that invitation read like chance. A pothole, a knee brushing a keychain heavy with house keys, a bump taken at full lock in a parking lot, just enough to rotate the switch one detent backward. Run became ACC. The engine died. Power steering went limp, brake assist vanished, the speedometer froze, and, fatally, the airbags went dark because the car now believed it was not running. A driver felt the wheel turn to iron and the pedal to wood, and a heartbeat later, the ditch arriving as if called. Some people saved it. 13 did not. The earliest stories are always small. A Saturn Ion stalls on a curve. A Cobalt coasts quietly into a fence. A teenager's memorial grows in plastic flowers. Local police write what they see. No skid marks. Airbags did not deploy. Speed unknown. Mechanics guess at fuel pumps or loose grounds. The phrase that repeats in reports, inexplicable loss of power, migrates from notebook to database and loses its urgency on the way. Inside a windowless room at GM, an engineer circles torque to rotate and writes simply, not enough. At the supplier, the fix is obvious. Increased detent force, a stronger spring, a tiny change to the plunger head geometry. Pennies. Someone approves it. Someone else changes the part number suffix, but not the root, so the good switch hides in plain sight. Service techs order by the old number. Good and bad mingle in bins. An engineer later says he avoided a formal change to dodge a paperwork cascade that would admit the old design was defective. Meanwhile, dealers recut keys with smaller heads and tell customers to carry fewer trinkets because heavy keychains are not recommended. It sounds like etiquette. It is triage. In 2005 and 2006, the crashes continue, spaced out enough to be explainable, until they are not. Parents keep calling, troopers keep faxing, plaintiffs' attorneys begin to collect a pattern. Inside GM, committees meet, Field Performance Assessment, Executive Field Action Decision Committee, rooms whose names imply gravity. The language stays careful. Stall sits beside rare. Airbag non-deployment appears without ignition off. One slide estimates a recall's cost at 8 figures. Another warns that if the switch is classed as safety-related, regulators will ask why airbags sleep when the engine dies. Corporate memory does what memory sometimes does. Chooses silence because silence is cheaper today. NHTSA reads the same tea leaves and does not yet see a trend. Gates of statistics and definitions hold. A car that whispers off just before impact looks like a car whose airbags never failed. The file grows thick with no defect trend identified. Families write letters that sound like weather reports of grief. Clear morning, curve near our house, no skid marks, and receive replies that mistake accuracy for comfort. It takes a lawsuit, an investigator with stubborn questions, and a mother in Wisconsin who refuses the hush of a settlement to turn the lock. Depositions expose the part number non-change. Procurement trails show a switch with higher torque, quietly replacing the weak one. Emails surface where engineers worry in the plain language used when rooms are small. This is wrong. This can kill people. Young lawyers stack case summaries into a pile high enough to tilt the carpet. A phrase appears on a slide nobody meant for daylight. Rolling the dice. In early 2014, the story snaps into the public square. GM announces a recall of more than 1 million small cars: Chevrolet Cobalt, Pontiac G5, Saturn Ion, and cousins. The company says the switch can fall from run to ACC, disabling airbags. The number 13, tied to confirmed deaths, becomes the headline's hard bone. More names will join later depending on how causation is counted, but 13 fits beneath a photograph. Mary Barra, weeks into the CEO job, is called to Capitol Hill to inherit a disaster older than her tenure and wider than one part. Families hold pictures against their chests and listen with patience forged by funerals. Barra speaks the new language of contrition and the older language of engineering. She orders an outside investigation, the Valukas report, to map the system failures that let a 2-cent flaw go to market and linger a decade. The document reads like anatomy: committees without teeth, silos without doors, a culture that punished candor, a chain of decisions that guarded cost from consequence. Inside GM, people coin a bleak joke for it. The GM nod, everyone agrees in the room, and no one acts in the hall. Barra bans it by name, fires 15, and sets up a compensation fund under Ken Feinberg. Checks go out, along with letters that cannot be enough. The mechanics are simple. A switch with too little detent torque can be bumped from run. That alone is survivable. Cars have coasted since cars existed. But airbags tethered to run mean a stall before a crash looks to sensors like a parked car. That is the killing detail. Not only power loss, but the quieting of the one system meant to forgive human and mechanical error alike. An engineer says the spring should have been stronger and the spec more honest. A parent says his daughter should be alive. Both are correct. Only one matters. Recalls arrive in waves. Ignition switches are replaced, keys recut, bright warning tags dangle from new fobs that feel heavier with meaning than with metal. Dealers fill lots with cars awaiting parts while used car yards read VINs like omens. Regulators rewrite guidance for interpreting sporadic data. Automakers hold meetings about lessons everyone swears are clear, this time. GM pays fines to NHTSA, reaches a deferred prosecution deal with the Justice Department, and takes a special charge large enough to sting and small enough to survive. What stays after press conferences are the kitchen table absences. A lanyard hangs on a peg. A voicemail remains unplayed because its last words are ordinary and therefore unbearable. Parents speak at engineering schools about force and friction and humility. Engineers visit crash sites wearing hard hats and new resolve. Somewhere on a proving ground, a young test driver hits a pothole again and again, hoping a number in a spreadsheet will finally be allowed to mean what it plainly means. The scandal's legacy is not a villain neatly punished or a corporation neatly redeemed. It is a stack of cautions any complex organization can forget overnight. Change the part number when you change the part. Let the word defect cross the table without career hazard. Treat a mother's letter as data, and treat data like testimony. Never let a penny round down a life. Stand at the shoulder of a Midwestern 2-lane in late afternoon, and the road hums its old song. Sunlight walks the soybeans. A Cobalt goes by, the good switch in its column now, its driver oblivious to the scandal that rewired the company that built it. The wind presses the car gently sideways and releases it. Only wind, only physics, nothing fatal in the air. Inside the dash, the new spring holds. That is what should have happened from the first. And the lesson, like most that matter, is smaller than a headline and larger than one firm. Systems fail when candor is a stranger and when cost is allowed to pass for wisdom. Thank you for listening to Road to Ruins. Subscribe for more true stories where systems fail and people pay the price.